This is step 3 for your watercolor silhouette, your final step. We're going to talk about what a silhouette is. So, silhouette, dark shape and outline of someone or something visible against a lighter background. So your example packet of your power lines, that's an example of a silhouette. The black power line and then the white background. In this case, same thing. You have a lighter sunset sunrise background, and then you have your power line, which we are going to be using black marker to shade in, similar to this one. You're going to need black markers, a ruler, and your project. Make sure that it's dry before you do this step. I'm going to be using black permanent markers. At home, if you have washable markers, this will work as well. It might be nice to have, a thicker one to color in the thicker areas, but then having a thinner one or, even a black pen will do for the power lines. This might be a little too thick, but if this is all you have, we'll make it work. I have 3 different sizes, so I have really thick permanent marker for the thicker areas, and then the medium classic permanent marker. I could use this too, especially for mine. I might show you how to use the thicker one, but this one would work as well. And then I have the ultra fine point, and that I believe I'm going to use for my power line. So if you just have this one, it'll work just fine. So also need a ruler. I want you to use the ruler to line up with your power lines, and very carefully, and I'll talk about this when I get to it, tracing over your pencil power lines. You could use this ruler to do, I'm going to leave that an option, to trace over your pencil lines and then color it in. That's an option for you, but I will talk about that shortly. So what I want you to do is start with the thickest area, work your way to the thinnest, just like when you were drawing your power lines. So I'm going to use the medium size to start with my thickest area and just outlining. So if you choose to use a ruler for this part, it's really, really, really important to make sure that you're holding it nice and tightly down so that it doesn't wiggle or move or mess up your drawing. So again, this is an option. If you just want to go ahead and trace that line, if you're more comfortable doing that, do it. That's fine. The only thing I'm requiring you to use a ruler for are the power lines. Okay, I want you to use this ruler and trace over your power lines. So lining it up, holding it down, nice and strong. This marker is thick, so I'm kind of moving in a little bit so that it's not protruding out too much. So anything that's thicker like this, I'll outline it, and then if you have a thicker marker, using it, and we've had a lot of practice with markers with our last project, I want you to do that same thing where we're just going from top to bottom and not just coloring in all directions. I want you to have that uniform top to bottom kind of way of adding the color. Again, that saves on your marker ink and it makes it look a little nicer. I'm using the flatness of this marker. If you have a marker like this at home, I'm using the flat side. Very carefully. Coloring it in entirely. Okay. This is the only one I'm going to use for that. I'm going to move on to the thinner one because that's the thickest area. Some of you might have thicker poles. You might want to use a thicker marker if you have it, but otherwise this will work just fine. I would save those extra little details for last. Let's just get thickest to the thinnest. So I'm going to move up to here. Again, this is an option if you want to use your ruler and trace over those pencil lines. Just really make sure that you're holding that ruler down. It's not going to move while you're tracing. And then again, trying to go in that same direction when you're coloring in. Notice I'm moving my ruler, my work around, even upside down, just to get on that other side because I can see that line a little bit better. Okay. Of course, making sure that you've colored in all the areas black. We've got a lot of practice with this with our last project, so it should be just kind of review for you. Now it's just getting in those extra details. So this is where a thinner marker might be nice for the outlining, if you have that available. Outlining, not so much coloring in unless it's, you know, what I'm doing right now, these tiny little square rectangle shapes. You could color those little bits in, but if it's anything a little bigger, kind of like those connectors I'm about to do, I would color those in with a thicker marker, but outlining, we don't want to see pencil marks on this. We want to see just your marker, so making sure you're going over those pencil marks. And then carefully coloring this in. Something this fine of detail, this small, doing the little tiny circle movement. Very carefully around the edges and in the middle. Kind of helps you control and stay in those lines. And if there's anything you want to adjust, you know, you're looking at this example right here and you're like, oh, maybe I could add a little more, or I could adjust something, just take your black marker, be careful, and just, you know, kind of fix certain things that you notice. Okay, after you have that power line, ooh, that's looking nice. Now, the power pole, sorry. Now it's the lines, and I want you to use your ruler for this. So again, very carefully lining it up. I'm going to use a thinner marker for this, but you know, that thicker one will work fine too if that's all you have. And lining it up, making sure this hand, look how spread out my hand is. I'm not just holding it right here and forgetting about this part. My fingers are spread out on here. It's lined up so I can just see that pencil line. And if you're using an ultra fine point marker like this, making sure it's directly vertical over your paper. Okay. And then moving on, relining it up, holding that ruler down so it does not move. Trying to stay on that pencil line so you don't have to worry about erasing anything. Just prepare yourself before you make that mark. Making sure you go all the way to the edges. Okay, that is the last step. If you do see any pencil marks and you're like, ooh, I should probably erase them, gently erase it. You don't want to push too hard. It doesn't look like it's gonna mess with your watercolors too much. I think it'll be just fine. Sometimes when you bring an eraser into watercolors, it'll erase your watercolors. But yep, last step. And then you will submit this on to Schoology when that assignment page comes up. So keep it safe until we submit it.